Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Podcast. This is the Falcons vs. 49ers Week 6 game preview. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host. He is Alan Strk, at Alan Strk on the Twitter. Alan, how are you doing today?
Very well. Very much looking forward to this matchup. We have a bit of a historical matchup here, given the ties. Everyone's favorite offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, making his first return to Atlanta. Because remember, in 2019, they played, but it was in San Francisco. And that was a really funky game. I think that was ironically one of the games that saved Dan Quinn's job for, 9 more months, unfortunately, for him. But I do think that was a crazy win. But this game, we have a lot to discuss. A lot of moving pieces, especially with San Francisco. Seems like every year they're getting banged up, but nevertheless, a huge test for this young Falcons team.
Yeah, a very difficult opponent, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Falcons have played a lot of good defenses so far, so they have certainly been tested, but this will be the biggest test yet. And it's one that they haven't really had to face. They've faced, like I said, some good defenses, but this is the number one defense in San Francisco. Also, notably, the number one rushing defense in both yardage allowed and yards per carry. So it's not a fluke of statistics that they're the number one rush defense. They are just legitimately, on a per carry basis, the best in the business, which is, of course, going to be very difficult for this Falcons team to move the ball, but this is not a 49ers offense that's been anywhere near as dominant as they have been in years past. For those wondering, the Falcons are scoring exactly 2 points per game more than the 49ers so far this year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of per game averages, that's like 7 or 8 spots in the ranking. So a little bit of a different team maybe than some were expecting to start the year. I think everyone usually expects the 49ers to sort of they have Kyle Shanahan, and Trey Lance is going to unlock this offense, and then we're right back to Jimmy Garoppolo, unfortunately, and I don't think things have certainly gone as planned there. You mentioned the injuries, to which we'll probably get to here first, just to cover it because there's so many. I know you mentioned before the show that you're a bit of like a closet 49ers fan, so what do you think about how they've started the season so far?
I appreciate elite defense. I just like the tough-mindedness, and I just think they have like the scariest pass-catching trio, I should say. I know A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert are doing some big things at Philly, but to me, especially after the catch, like Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, you get the ball in their hands, they're going to make something happen. They've just always been this gritty, tough-minded team. I always appreciate it. He's got some real bullies. I know Trent Williams isn't playing, but when he's healthy, to me, he's the most terrifying left tackle in the league. So guys got like him, Bosa, Fred Warner, and then you have young players coming up like Hufanga, who I know everyone's saying might be next Troy Polamalu. We'll see about that, but he's definitely making plays. So I just, in the league where we like, the prolific offenses with the high octane quarterbacks and just, throwing the ball 40, 50 yards downfield. It's like, I like some of these grittier teams. I love the Tennessee teams from a few years ago. That doesn't quite exist anymore, but nevertheless, San Fran, I just think they're awesome watching. Even though it's been a bit of a difficult start for them, I think they're catching their momentum now. And I just think if they could score more than 20 points, they're probably going to win every game they play. That's kind of like in the position. And as bad as Jimmy G could be, which we know the Jimmy coaster never stops. He will throw the ball. He will give the secondary 2 or 3 opportunities a game to make plays. It takes 1 or 2 plays from Debo, a Kittle play, and then maybe Ayuk catch, and they could score 24 points. So the margin for error against a team like San Fran is very minimal.
Yeah, they will make mistakes on offense, but they will erase mistakes with that defense. So it sort of cancels out. That's why they're 3-2, currently leading the NFC West also, which I don't know if a lot of people were expecting at this point in the year, considering how much the Rams have struggled, how much the Cardinals and the Seahawks, have not necessarily struggled compared to the Rams, but they're not certainly lighting the league on fire or anything at this point. So
San Fran's defense is probably the only defense that shut down the great Geno Smith.
Far. The legend. Yeah, so that's worth pointing out. But speaking of the defense, a very banged up defense right now. We heard after Sunday's game in Week 5 that Emmanuel Mosley, who I think is their cornerback 2, he tore his Achilles or ACL.
I think it was huge loss.
I think it was ACL. Yeah,
he's been playing fantastic.
Yeah, so he will be out for the season. Jimmy Ward, who actually wasn't starting, but has started for them in the past, was sort of like their rotational safety. He
Stay
broke his
better.
hand. Yeah, and he'll be out for some time. But other than that, those were the two big ones. Nick Bosa left the game with a groin injury. They were already missing Arik Armstead and Javon Kinlaw on the interior. Trent Williams at offensive tackle. All of those guys that I mentioned, folks, have not practiced yet this week, including Thursday, which is when we record. That's a lot of guys to now be down on the interior, and they've certainly managed to keep the defense upright, even without some of those guys in there. But you wonder if Nick Bosa does miss the game, if that's sort of going to be like, is that one bridge now too far that they can't recover from? I am wondering your thoughts on that. This defense as a whole now potentially missing, that would be, I think, 3 starters on the defensive line. How do you feel about this defense and their ability to sort of overcome even more injuries piling up?
Armstead was a DNP too, correct?
That's right. Armstead and Kinlaw and Bosa, all 3 were DNPs both Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, that's at the core of their defense because Armstead, it wasn't too long ago, he was averaging double-digit sacks a season. He has those huge, long alligator arms that just always give guards fits. So, yeah, he's a huge loss, so we know how special Bosa is. They go pretty deep. They've gotten good contributions from guys like Kevin Givens and Hassan Ridgeway. I love Charles Omenihu off the edge. So they're one of the deeper D-lines in the league, but obviously Nick Bosa is the one that commands attention. If he's not there, I think D'Amico Ryan's going to have to get extra creative to generate that pressure. I know he's never been afraid to blitz. We've seen that over the course of his tenure at Sanford, but man, I think given the concerns in the secondary, because I think Mosley, to me, besides Bosa, is the biggest loss. Mosley was he's just a physical corner that could really jam up receivers. To me, it would have been a perfect match between him and Drake London. For them to lose him and not really have suitable backups, I don't know what Jason Verrett's stats necessarily. Lenore is kind of a liability. So I think, as good as their defense is, to me, they have the best linebacker core in the league, which I know we'll talk about. But eventually, you lose all these pieces against one of the more efficient offenses in the league, you're going to feel it. So if I'm the Falcons, I'm pretty encouraged that there's a couple of vulnerable spots that they could attack the San Fran defense in.
Yeah, as far as I know, Verrett is not coming back this week.
Yeah.
That's worth looking into, certainly, because they would really need him to potentially come back. I guess it's possible that he will be able to return soon, but it doesn't sound necessarily like that would be this week. But like you said, Demodore Lenore not necessarily lighting it up, and without Manuel Mosley, that's suddenly a big hole on that defense. But yeah, I think Trevorius Ward, the other guy, this is sort of a good segue into our Falcons passing offense versus the 49ers passing defense look. Trevorius Ward, they signed from the Chiefs. He's been awesome. I think he's the number 2 cornerback according to PFF so far. Yeah. Tashawn Gibson, who it seems like nobody was going after. He's the number 2 safety.
I thought he was becoming a journeyman because I think he was really good in Cleveland 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But look at him.
Yeah,
now.
And it's crazy. He goes to San Francisco. Now he's the number 2 safety according to PFF. You mentioned earlier Talanoa Hufanga, who looks awesome as a rookie, way better than anyone expected. They've still got Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. I think Samson Ebukam has been really good. He was on the injury report this week too, but he was limited, I guess, today after missing the first practice. So it seems like he's probably going to play. And then, of course, the Falcons. It sounds like Kyle Pitts is trending towards playing. Kyle Pitts himself said that he expects to play on Sunday, assuming there's no setbacks. So we could be getting him back. Obviously, we still have Drake London. We still have Olamide Zaccheaus. Kadero Hodge seems to have moved into that wide receiver 3 role. But this is a really tough matchup. Boy, how do you feel about how the 49ers stack up against the Falcons passing offense?
It's definitely a concerning matchup given how much pressure San Fran tends to generate and just how the Falcons still don't have much of consistency in the pass game. As much as Arthur Smith will run play action, use those condensed formations, it's just, you saw against Tampa Bay, it was hard to get much of a drop back game going until the second half. I just think with Mariota, you're going to have your limitations there. Now, I think if they get him on the move, because I think it's weird, Mariota, when he tends to go outside the pocket, he handles pressure well. But when he's inside the pocket and he has to make decisions, it
Yeah.
just does not end well. So I think this is the type of game where Falcons really have to get them on the move, kind of what they did against New Orleans week 1, where it's just like if they had to go 50% play action, then so be it, because it worked against New Orleans. Like that was as good as offensive performance you could expect it from the Falcons. I think they're kind of in the same position here, where it's just like they score 20 points, then that's a hell of an achievement, because this is one of the toughest tests you'll get. And then I'm curious, because he's someone that emerged. How do you think they could utilize Avery Williams? Because he's someone that continuously is making plays.
Yeah, I really liked what we've seen from Avery Williams so far. I was super impressed with him as a returner. He had his first touchdown as a rusher, his first touchdown in the NFL in general. And I've been really encouraged by that. He seems to be that dynamic presence that they have sort of lacked, or we're going to lack without Cordarrelle Patterson. And, you just wonder, like, can he hold up? Can he take the hits? Because he's, I think he's closer to 200, if not over 200 now after his transition to running back. But he's not a big guy, so you're not necessarily going to be feeding him the ball. But when you have two guys like Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier who can just churn out yards and take those tough carries, I think Avery Williams is absolutely someone that should be involved. And they play him in the slot like frequently. They haven't necessarily targeted him a lot as a slot player, but they love to like rotate him out there and have him do stuff. And he's been, I think, one of the more fascinating players to watch on the offense in terms of how they use him as a chess piece, sort of like a baby Patterson in some ways. So doesn't have the size of Patterson, obviously. That's a big thing that works in Patterson's favor. But as a guy that's like, this is a cheap draft pick for years that you can, if you can find a way to use him, even if he's like, 65, 70% of Patterson at that point, I mean, that's not bad at all. So,
and it's cool, that comparison, because to me, Williams is now the returner, and it's like, he's showing some big playability. Like you watch him against Tampa, he was breaking tackles.
He was close.
Good vision. Like the way he's going, like he's going to break one at some point. Yeah. And I just like the fact that they're utilizing him like on these misdirection runs or screens. Like, to me, I like to see this Arthur Smith-Dalla more screens, particularly in this game, given that San Francisco could probably blitz a lot. Like I think the screen game has been lacking a little bit. And I think if there's a running back you want to see, catch a pass out of the backfield, would be Avery Williams.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be nice to see. I would like to see more of the Kyle Pitts screens too. He really executed that one very well. Yeah. I just don't know how effective they're going to be throwing against this defense. I mean, the 49ers haven't been as dominant against the pass, and you certainly think that'll probably take a hit without their corner 2 now. So there may be some vulnerability there. I
have the big concern about just how good their linebackers are, because we mentioned D. Greenlaw, Al-Shafir, like these bootlegs, misdirection plays, play action. Like, sometimes we'll get linebackers in a frenzy. These San Francisco linebackers, they're as positionally sound as it gets. Like Fred Warner's everywhere on the field. He really just leads that defense. So I'm wondering, like, those plays in the intermediate area, those 10 to 15 yard chunk plays, whether it's off a dig or a slant or whatever intermediate route may be, is that space going to be there where we usually expect, just based on watching San Francisco? They don't really allow easy completions. Everything's a grind against them. So to me, this is the type of game where it's a good thing Kyle Pitts is healthy, because this isn't a game for Felipe Franks to get targets 40 yards downfield. This isn't a game where Cordarrelle Hodge should be getting like 6 targets. Like, this is a game where Drake London, Kyle Pitts, you were drafted for these games. Yeah. And I'm not going to put the whole onus on them, because Mario has missed them quite a bit. But this is where you want to see London and Pitts get at least over 50, if not 75 yards or more.
Yeah, I think, attacking on the intermediate to deep level is probably where they're going to have more success against this defense. They're going to sit on and take out all of that short stuff. And they're going to stack the box against the Falcons, because everyone does, as they should. As they should. The Falcons haven't really done enough as a passing offense to justify teams playing a lot of cover 2 against them or anything like that. So I do think we're going to see a lot of stacked boxes, but the Falcons, to their credit, have been very good against stacked boxes. I think they're averaging over 3 yards before contact against stacked boxes, which is a complete testament to the run blocking. And if the 49ers are down Kinlaw, Arik Armstead, and potentially Nick Bosa, that could open up the run game more than expected, even though these guys have been excellent losing those three players, that's really difficult. And, you also have to look at like who have they played in terms of their opponents, like against the run. That's something to consider. I don't think they've played a bunch of slouches or anything so far, but they did play the Bears, right? Who have a good rushing attack.
I thought they looked good against Denver.
Yeah. But other than that, like Seattle, Denver, Los Angeles, Carolina, none of these teams run the ball well at all. So they haven't really been tested a lot in that area. And with the injuries, you think that maybe the Falcons could have some success on the ground. And that's obviously a great segue into talking about the Falcons rushing offense versus the 49ers run defense. You mentioned it. The linebackers are awesome. Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, obviously. And that defensive line has been a big strength, but now injured. They do happen to have a really good run defending safety in rookie Talanoa Hufanga. But what do you think about the Falcons' ability to run the ball? The 49ers are number one against the run right now, allowing the fewest yards and the fewest yards per carry. But for the reasons we mentioned, perhaps there is a chance the Falcons could have more success than expected against this unit.
And I think the injuries definitely blow in their favor because, as you saw against Tampa Bay, first half they were pretty limited, but it seemed like Tampa's front wore down the second half. Like in that, Falcons put together a couple of long drives where Huntley and Algier were gaining 4 to 5 yards a pop. So even if it doesn't necessarily, first half they're not running that well, if it's not as efficient, I think Arthur Smith will stay committed to it as long as it's not like a 3-4 possession game. But I think that's probably the best outlook I can have for them is just given San Fran's now lack of depth, maybe wear them down continuously running those outside zone and sometimes find a little more power. Because one thing I love about Caleb Huntley in particular, he has great vision. Like he's very patient and he'll wait to make that cut, and then when he cuts, he's always running forward. Like there's rare times you see Caleb Huntley get stopped and he's going backwards. So I just love the aggression he brings. I think Algier's starting to break more tackles. So I just love this physical side, and like you need it against the San Fran team because they don't miss tackles and they rarely get undisciplined. So to me, it's just like you kind of got to get them head on. So
yeah,
that's kind of what's going to come down to it. And guys like Keith Smith, Parker Hesse have to keep playing at a high level.
Yeah. This is a really strong physical rushing offense of the Falcons. They do wear teams down. That's where they've tended to have the most success is in the second half. Just that combination of Algier and Huntley, just it's tough to keep up with for a whole game. And then you've got Avery Williams as like the lightning to their thunder, who just comes in and breaks off this run. And so far the Falcons rushing attack has not really been stifled. If anyone's going to do it, it probably would be the 49ers, like I say, with the number one run defense. But I think the lowest yards the Falcons had in a game on the ground was 90 yards against the Rams, and they were down, 3 scores at one point. So, like, they just didn't run the ball a lot, period, in that game. And you don't blame them, certainly. But still a solid, number. It's a good run game still. I think it was still pretty efficient in terms of the yards per carry. So, hopefully not in a hole like that against San Francisco.
I got a good question for you. Just because we haven't really seen the use of the runner the past few weeks, but do you think maybe this is a game where we'll run a couple of wrinkles with Mariota, try to go on the option with him?
Yeah, I think they're going to incorporate more of that, right? Because Mariota as a passer, last week I think they did it well. There were a couple plays last week against the Bucs where I thought Mariota ran it very well. There was one play that looked like it was almost like a quarterback option to decide if he wanted to keep it or throw, and he pumped and then was like, I'm taking off. And I broke it down in the film review, the way that the routes were run and the way it was blocked sort of just left this giant hole for him to run through, and he took off for like 20 yards on that play. So I think with how limited he is as a passer, not a bad passer, certainly, but like he's just the deep play action stuff they're not hitting. Maybe they will eventually, but without that aspect of the game, you need him to really threaten as a runner, and you need him to keep the defense honest and keep him in zone and that sort of thing. And I think that they will try to incorporate that. This is a tough team to do it against because, like you said, they do have really good, really athletic linebackers, particularly Fred Warner. They have good safeties that can chase him down. Against teams with the slower linebackers, he's probably going to have more success. But, Mariota's a very good athlete in his own right, so it's not like he can't outrun linebackers. But, I expect that to be a significant part of the game plan. as long as Mariota's still in the lineup, I think the quarterback run is sort of a necessary part of his toolkit if this offense is going to run at any sort of level of efficiency. And, I don't know if it will be as big of a factor when and if, Ritter comes in. Like, I think it'll be more of like if the play breaks down, take off to threaten that. But I think with Mariota, it's going to be more of a stable of like, we're going to give him opportunities to run as like a specific part of the game plan.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe with Ritter would be more like a red zone wrinkle. Like maybe
he's really fast. He's just not a very natural runner, I would say. Right. Like
maybe keep that near the end zone, just to trust him maybe to get those 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah, like he's like a threat to run, but he's not going to be a high volume runner. You think of like a Josh Allen or whatever. Like most games he's not running the ball more than like 3 or 4 times, but he's very dangerous when he does, so everyone sort of has to watch it. I don't think Ritter's anywhere near as talented as a like ball carrier, but he is very fast. So it's like if you don't protect and cover it, like if he sees man and nobody's around, he could take off for like 20 yards because he runs like a 4.5. But not necessarily a guy that you want like to scheme up like quarterback runs for, other than like you said, the red zone area. But we are on Ritter watch now. Like people are writing articles. Athletic wrote an article, about Mariota and why the team likes him, and we saw other sites like Draft Network, like when are we going to see Ritter? So like we're very much in the time zone of like Ritter may be on the field sooner than later.
Yeah, I've come off very harsh on Mariota, so I'm trying to limit my Mariota, not slander necessarily, but just trying not to be like so persistent on wanting to see Ritter. But yeah, I see enough. Like I want to see the passing game get maximized more, because as fun as that Falcons offense has been, I just don't see them reaching their peak with Mariota at this point, and that's why it's like, okay, I get these next 2 games. Like this is the toughest stretch of the season. I just wrote an article about this. Like Bucks, 49ers, Bengals. Like you're literally facing 3 of the top teams. 4 of them played in the conference championship last year. So I get it, but I do hope the pieces are being set for Ritter to play either Halloween weekend or early November.
Yeah, I'm guessing like the earliest I still think would be like week 8. Against the Panthers. I think that's like the earliest. I know people are clamoring for it now. Like, oh, is he going to get inserted if the game goes badly? Like, I think you're doing a disservice to him to just throw him in, especially against like San Fran or like Cincinnati. Like, I mean, you don't throw him to the Wolves. Yeah.
Big Lou's doing a great job in Cincinnati. Man. Yeah. Like people, because Bengals don't have many superstars necessarily. They're not big name defense, but they are very well organized and they are extremely well coached. So I even think going against Cincinnati is a little bit of a tough.
Yeah, exactly. They're 8th, I think. They're like the 8th ranked defense. Yeah. So like they're no slouch either, certainly.
Big Lou Anarumo, man. Don't play around with Big Lou.
No, don't mess around with that. But yeah, I do think if the Falcons are to win this game, they're probably going to take advantage of the injuries of the 49ers and sort of defy expectation and just run the ball really well and sort of wear them down, wear down a depleted front. Sort of like they did against the Browns, where it was like, oh, the Browns are actually really, playing well against the run. How are the Falcons going to do here? And then they just sort of destroyed them in the second half and wore them down. And that's probably their best bet, because I don't know how much success they'll have passing the ball. It's just been really inconsistent. But like if they were to hit like 1 or 2 of these deep shots that they seem to throw up every game, this offense, like the passing offense, would look much better statistically. So like they're not necessarily far away. It's just like it hasn't happened yet.
And the matchups are there to be had. Like as bad as Carolina is, like Baker Mayfield hit about 2 of them last week. I know one of them was the Robbie Anderson. So like outside Trevorius Ward, like they just have to, whether it's whoever's replacing Mosley, most likely Lenore, it's just like target him, see what we could get downfield, because I think someone who not necessarily underutilized, but who to me 2-3 times a game makes timely plays is Zacchaeus. Whether it's on like a crosser or if it's underneath, like Zacchaeus just 2 to 3 times a game, he pops up like a 15 and 20 yard catch, and it's just like, gotta get more of this somehow. And thankfully, one of them translated into a touchdown last week. And I'm just wondering, what could he do instead of with 3-4 targets a game? Maybe if you give him 6 targets.
Yeah, maybe. That's what I wanted to see. I mean, I think we all just want, like, the passing game is so low volume that there's just so few opportunities for all these guys too. So that's frustrating. Really, if Mariota could just get the ball like to Kyle Pitts on target, that would be great, because there was a stat floating around yesterday that everyone was getting up in arms about that. I think Kyle Pitts leads the league in like the highest percentage of his targets that are considered like off target, like uncatchable. 32% of his targets have been deemed like uncatchable off-target throws. So that's brutal, especially when he's not even getting targeted as much as people want. And then when he is, like a third of the targets are just uncatchable. So
I think DJ Chark led the league in that for like 2 years when he was on the Jaguars. That is one of the most brutal stats. And like you watched it last week, the awful, just oh my god, that drop by Hodge. Just like imagine if Pitts was in that position. That's a touchdown. Like if you watch all 22 on the, it's just oh man, those type of moments. And I think just the last thing before I guess we'll eventually transfer over to the next match, but like I hope they continue to like whether it's screens or runs focus on the right side because to me Lindstrom and McGarry are continuing to both play at a high level, and I just think that's like their best access to get those plays, whether it's 10 yards rushing, 20 yards passing off the screen. Like to me, I don't know, like Lindstrom McGarry, they just have this chemistry right now. Like ever since week 1, I see a lot more success running to the right side compared to the left or middle.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, like Lindstrom, number 1 guard in the NFL, according to PFF. That's always nice to see. 91 PFF grade.
I'm surprised his passing so low.
I don't buy it. I mean, I think it's.
Did Aaron Donald just like did I miss something from that game?
I don't know. I don't get that, but McGarry has been good, like very good. That right side has really been dominant. They've gotten really good blocking contributions from the tight ends. I think Dahlman and Wilkinson have been like fine. Matthews is still reliable as ever. So I think the offensive line as a whole, especially if Nick Bosa's not playing, I think that the pass protection will be okay. If Bosa's playing, he's just a guy that it's like you got to pencil in like 1 to 2 sacks for Bosa like every single time you play him. That's just kind of his thing.
Him too, and you got to worry about them on a twist. Like as good as Nick Bosa's off the edge, they do a fantastic job utilizing him on twists. So it's time to monitor.
Right. So we'll see if he plays. If he doesn't play, that's a huge loss. I mean, he's their best player, like overall, probably. Absolutely. I mean, Debo, really good also. But
and Fred Warner, I put Fred Warner up there too.
Yeah. That's very true. It's tough. It's a tough.
They got star power, man. Kind of like last week. The Falcons are a good team with full on star power.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough matchup offensively against this defense. Flipping the script here, getting over to the defensive side, the Falcons taking on the 49ers. This is a different looking offense than maybe some expected. Obviously, the run game is a major part of it for them. They are one of the top rushing attacks in the NFL. They're not as good as the Falcons, which probably shocks many of you. The Falcons are number 3, actually, right now in rushing offense. The 49ers are 8th. So they average about 30 yards less per game than the Falcons, which is significant statistically. Also about half a yard per carry less than the Falcons. So Falcons are over 5 yards per carry on the season on like over 100 attempts, I believe. So that's damn impressive. So this is a tough. We'll start off with the Falcons against the run defense of the 49ers here because that's sort of the bread and butter of what they do as well. Atlanta's run defense, not necessarily a storied unit, but it's been okay. They've 17th, I believe, in rushing yardage allowed. So, more or less average against, a pretty good 49ers rushing attack. They are missing Elijah Mitchell, who was their starting running back, went out in week 1. They do have Jeff Wilson, who's been playing well for them. They do have former Falcon Tevin Coleman. It sounds like they will be getting... Yeah. It sounds like they'll be getting rookie Tyrion Davis-Price back. And, of course, they're going to use Deebo Samuel a lot as a runner as well. But, yeah, I mean, I think for the Falcons, it's going to be really important for them to limit the damage the 49ers can do on the ground. It also sounds like Trent Williams may miss this game, too, which obviously would be huge. How do you feel about the Falcons' ability to limit the 49ers' running attack?
I think whenever you play Kyle Shanahan offense, that your linebackers have to be on point. And I've been pretty disappointed, particularly last week with the linebacker play. I know it looks like Michael Walker likely to miss just because it seemed like he suffered a pretty gruesome knee injury. Yeah. But, he's been someone that's been out of position. But like we've been very encouraged by Troy Anderson, but this type of game where like such a raw rookie go up against a Kyle Shanahan offense where there's just so much deception, so much misdirection, like you worry about that. And then it's like Sean Evans and I black his name right now. They're starting to play another linebacker.
Nate Landman.
Nate Landman, yeah.
He's getting activated over Nick Kwiatkowski.
Because I wasn't gonna say Kwiatkowski. I was like, I had not seen Kwiatkowski, but I saw another linebacker. I'm like, yeah. So it's just I assume if Walker's a play, he's gonna, because the Falcons at this point, I think they're rotating linebackers in and out. So I don't think there's like a definitive starters, especially if Walker's out. So, but that's always I'm always concerned about. And like I don't know, like Arthur Smith's talking up the linebackers. I haven't been overly thrilled about linebackers. Other than Troy Anderson, I think I've been slightly encouraged by, just because I had no expectations, just because I hear he's so raw. And like when you're a raw linebacker in this league, it's going to take time. But he's actually, he's relatively played well. Like I think we see athletic traits. He's actually processing the game pretty well.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm still pretty concerned, just because look, we don't know the D tackle situation, and I don't know. It's just whenever you go against Kyle Shanahan, I'm just thinking, there's just so much things you have to be concerned about, and then it's just the tackling's been an issue, and like trying to tackle Debo, we know how scary that could be.
Yeah, big time. And I think Rashaan Evans has been better than expected, particularly in coverage. But I think he's been the best linebacker so far. We've all been encouraged by what we've seen from Troy Anderson, but again, he's going to be put in a lot of stressful positions against this Kyle Shanahan offense. I mean, it's a good experience for him. I wouldn't go into it with super high expectations, but again, he's the type of guy that's so athletic that if he makes a misstep, it doesn't crush him because he can recover and catch up. But I wouldn't expect him to like put on a show or anything. But honestly, where he's been the most dominant as a blitzer, I mean, he's been crushing plays. He's really hard to chip because he's like the size of an edge rusher. I think he's like 245 pounds and 6'4" or whatever. Like he's huge, even for a linebacker. We saw Leonard Fournette like barely able to even get a piece of him, and he still pressured Brady on that one play. So I think they're going to blitz him a lot, knowing that, hey, like we probably can't trust you in coverage, or we can't really trust you to fit and make good tackles and take good angles. So we're just going to blitz you relentlessly, because you can get to Jimmy Garoppolo. You can force him into mistakes by blitzing. So I suspect that. But one guy who I think, two guys on the interior have been really pleasant surprises. Taquan Graham looking like a starting quality rotational player. And then Abdullah Anderson out of nowhere. I think they cut Anthony Rush to start Abdullah Anderson at nose tackle, who is like 300 pounds, but they're sort of like going to this 3-4 where they just have basically like three tech sized guys. And then they just expect the linebackers to sort of fill the gaps. And honestly, it didn't go poorly last week. They held the Bucs, I think, to like 59 yards rushing or something, very low yards per carry. So maybe that will work out. I still think like next year, the need for like an actual dynamic, good nose tackle is pretty big, but hasn't been a disaster since they've cut Anthony Rush.
And maybe that's kind of like Dean Pease's philosophy, because he does like those hybrid guys.
Yeah.
That could fit into playing a 3-4, because I think that's why you see Ogundeji getting so many reps. So yeah, it's been encouraging. I just wonder how much longer this can last, just because I don't know, whenever you see like such, I don't want to say lack of talent, but like limited personnel, just like, okay, it's been good so far, but you start getting these tougher tests, you're playing against teams that really punish you. That's when it's like, all right.
Yeah.
It's the litmus test that I think is going to give us more clarity, because right now there's still some murkiness. But no, you're absolutely spot on. Quan Graham, he makes about 3 or 4 plays a game. You're just like, oh wow, he's in the backfield. Look at him. His get off is really good, and I think he's someone that I think we all want him or envisioned Marlon Davidson to be, and Graham's kind of just taking his place. Yeah,
good for him. And I think they've got a keeper in Abdullah Anderson too, as like a rotational back end guy. Like he's been on 70 snaps, PFF has him as like a 73.9. So like, I mean, that's for a guy that you signed off the street. That's great.
Yeah.
So they might have a keeper there in terms of a depth guy, but I think this interior defensive line, probably the position that needs the most investment this offseason, because Grady Jarrett is out there being a hero every single week, but like it's literally him. And they really could use another sort of dynamic force next to him. Like if they were to get like a Jalen Carter or something like that, that would completely change the whole, landscape of that defensive line. But I would take a top edge rusher too, for the record. But
we got another offseason.
Yeah. We got like at least 10 weeks. We got at least 5 or 6 more weeks until draft takes start. So So I do think they have a chance to at least slow down this run game, but we'll see. Shouldn't expect too much.
Yeah, because it's like Stanford's O-line, we know there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Other than McGlinchey, there's no real veteran, but it's just with Shannon's play calling and the influence of George Kittle, it's like they can just crack open runs. Like the way Jeff Wilson just finding these lanes, it's just like, oh man, like how does Stanford always do this year in, year out? It's like they have question marks left and right across the offense line, and here we go. Someone just running down a clear lane. Like it's just it's unbelievable. So these are things that you hope the Falcons are prepared for, but it wouldn't be surprised to see them just purely off their scheme crack open 5-6 big runs.
They will certainly. But I mean, you mentioned the offensive line. Like if Trent Williams does not play, this is an offensive line that is pretty vulnerable at this point. They've had to already shuffle quite a few guys around. Right now, it looks like it's going to be McGlinchey at right tackle. He's the one that they were planning to start. The other one's not so much. Spencer Burford at right guard. I think it's like Jake Brendel or something at center. Aaron Banks, I think it was like a 2021 rookie at left guard. And then I don't even know who they're going to start at left
tackle. I know
tackle.
Jalen Moore has gotten reps.
Okay, maybe that's who it will be then. I mean, that's not exactly a star-studded group here, but certainly so that could be something the Falcons try to take advantage of, right? They've got a young they've got a replacement center in there in Jake Brendel, who has performed quite poorly according to PFF, so they may try to really take advantage of that by blitzing a lot as much as they can. They've got some former Falcons in here, right? Daniel Brunskill, I don't know if he's hurt or
I think they tried him at right guard last year, and it's like, we can't have you start again. Like, it was that
well,
bad.
it was like one of these years he actually played like super well. It was like bizarre. Like he just went there and was just good. And then it was like it lasted 1 year basically. So
he's like a competent run blocker, but you leave him on the island in pass protection, it's gonna get ugly. So I think that's why Shanahan's like, we need to draft the right guard. But as much as teams like to exploit these mismatches on paper, it's just they get the ball so quickly and they know how to use play action so well. Like it would not surprise me if Stanford ran like 5 or 6 screens. It's just because if they're not the most screen heavy team in the league, they're up there because they have the personnel to do it. B, it's just like they're pretty much doing everything possible to mask Garoppolo from having to make 5-7 step drops. They want to get the ball out of Garoppolo's hand as quick as possible, or at least run play action where it's just like, okay, he'll have space to operate and hopefully he will not throw it to a defender's hands.
I mean, and that's a good, segue to the Falcons pass defense against the 49ers pass offense. And it's like, this is not necessarily a star-studded, group of pass catchers. They do have George Kittle, who hasn't played a ton so far because of injury, but he's been back over the past couple of weeks. And he's been solid, of course. At wide receiver, they've got Debo. They've got Brandon Ayuk. And then it's just like a cast of guys, right? Like
I do appreciate Jauan Jennings. Jauan Jennings can make some plays after the catch.
But then it's like Danny Gray, Willie Snead, Ray McLeod. Like they just don't have a ton of guys there. Kind of reminds me of like 2015 Falcons, where it's like they had a couple of pass catchers, and then it was like behind them, it was like, ooh.
Yeah, I don't know how Mohamed Sanu's on this roster. Shannon, what we're doing here? Come on, man.
Should have called him up. Yeah, Mohamed Sanu is the secret to fixing the Falcons' pass offense.
How do you have Willie Snead on the roster, but Mohamed Sanu? Come on, man. That's just an insult to Shannon. You got to know your roots better. But nevertheless, it's just, like I said before, like with Samuel and Ayuk, like you just get them, whether it's a screen or a crosser. If they get in the open field, it's just like they could turn 10-yard plays into, for Ayuk, 20 yards, for Debo could be 60 yards. Like it's just, they are so dangerous after a catch. And that's where, like, I think one of the more, I guess, just biggest highlights for me watching Falcons defense. Like to me, Richie Grant's becoming legitimately good. Like every week in and week out, he is just very dependable. And that wasn't the case last year. He was stepped too late at times. You would miss a tackle, or it's just positionally just not where he should have been, or just lacking the awareness. This year, he just seems so much more on point. And I think that's like one of the biggest encouraging signs is, Falcons secondary. I know AJ Terrell's come off a bit of a tough week, but besides that, I think this Falcons secondary has been, I think, above average for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can complain about this. Like, I don't think Mike Ford should be playing the slot necessarily, but besides that, I don't know what other qualms you could have about the secondary. To me, they're playing at a relatively high level, and for all the defenses, for all the yards they allow, like you watched it last week, for the most part, it comes underneath.
Yeah, and the Falcons may be getting Isaiah Oliver back this week, so that could potentially factor in.
He can tackle. We know that.
Yeah, and he's very good. He does provide, like, I think D. Alford has been good, especially in coverage. As a run defender, he just doesn't have the size that you're like. I think he's been a very reliable tackler, certainly. But as like a guy that's going to really impact the run game, going to run up to the line and fill and blitz and that sort of thing, that's not really his game at like 175 pounds. So you would think that Isaiah Oliver coming in might give them a little bit more flexibility with that slot defender that Dean Pease likes. He even was working in Eric Harris at one point, and you could tell he really wants the size. It does seem like Alford has won that battle. He's been playing in recent weeks a lot more than Mike Ford, which I think is good. I think Mike Ford's like fine as your like reserve corner, but he's not someone you ever want to just like trot out there to start a game, like ideally. So I certainly like what we've seen from D. Alford. I think Richie Grant has been awesome. I've really enjoyed that. Big surprise to me is like Darren Hall like barely plays. It seemed like going into the offseason he was going to be the guy that was sort of like the third or fourth corner and like just not really playing much.
I think against the Rams, he was like rotating a bit with Casey Hayward.
Yeah.
And I know he had that forced fumble. Besides that, he was getting beat quite a bit. Now, granted, I think a decent amount of it was against Cooper Kupp, so I understand. But man, like Casey Hayward, I think's been. I know some people have said not quite living up to expectations, but man, that pass breakup last week.
Oh man, last week he was awesome. Yeah.
That is such a difficult play to make. Like to me, I thought he got beat a step, but then just the body control, because it just seemed like you see so many cores in that scenario just barge into receiver, which would have been a 40-yard gain there, just purely off the penalty. And it's the body control and then get his head around and break up the pass. Like he just makes those savvy plays, and he's done that over the course of his career. Like he's so dependable, Casey Hayward. So I'm loving that signing. I think it's been one of the biggest highlights watching defense. So this secondary, like I don't expect them to get beat. It's just a matter of, and I keep stressing, it's really going to come down to tackling.
Yeah,
you just can't allow San Fran to get those yards after catch. So they do it every week. You just see them generating big plays off 6 to 8 yard completions, because we know Jimmy G can't really throw outside the windows, outside the numbers. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that's like the main thing I'm stressing when it comes ultimately when it comes to secondary. It's just like, okay, I'm confident I can cover these receivers, but it's just a matter of what Shanahan schemes up. Can they finish those stops?
Yeah, that's my concern, because they just got annihilated by dump offs against the Bucs. Like Leonard Fournette just took every single one for like 8 yards. So they've got to clean that up somehow. Then they
tightened up in the fourth quarter. Did you know?
They did.
Like they got, or not even fourth quarter, the whole second half. Like they forced three and outs.
Yeah, and like in a row too. Yeah.
Yeah, and like some of it, to me, I thought they were just playing tighter coverage, because you saw in that first half they were dropping the linebackers.
Oh yeah,
like 10 yards away from the ball. Just like you're giving a guy like Brady easy access, and like Jimmy Garoppolo's
just free catches.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's just going to take it every time too. These are quarterbacks where you give them the space, they're going to get the ball quick. They're not necessarily guys that are going to stay in the pocket 3-4 seconds or try and maneuver around to throw the ball 40 yards downfield. You give them a clear lane, they are going. So I hope Dean Pease recognize that. Like this isn't a game where you're trying to drop players 10, 15 yards back. It's like San Francisco team that's going to beat you underneath in the intermediate areas.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of zone stuff, a lot of trying to clog up the middle of the field and make it very difficult to read and put bodies in there to try to get in front of some of these Garoppolo passes, because the turnovers are probably going to be key. That's always a big factor when you're playing an opponent that you're a big underdog against. Falcons 5.5 point underdogs, I believe, right now. So you got to get some turnovers,
and get that short field, because it's like, it's going to be hard to put together 60, 70-yard drives against the defense. If you could get it within a range of 30 yards, it's like, okay, we got something to work with here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That about covers the matchups. I do think this is a very difficult game for the Falcons, but I'm interested to hear what your prediction would be for this game.
I was trying to think of a score earlier, because I do think it's going to be pretty low score. I am going with San Fran. I just think San Fran, to me, besides Philly, I think San Fran is the best team that I see right now. I would actually put San Fran over Tampa Bay from what I've seen. So I'm going to go 23-13. I just think the Falcons are in a position now where, look, they're not going to, I don't think any team necessarily is going to blow them out. Maybe if they play Buffalo, but I just think the Falcons are just so feisty, and I think defensively, I've been very encouraged by just how they get off the field better on third down. Like the first few weeks, they couldn't get off the field, but now you're seeing them get those key stops. And look, they're going to have some success run the ball, and I'm sure London and Pitts can make some plays, but I just think personnel-wise, it's like one of those games where San Fran just has too many stars, too many above-average players that are going to make the difference, and the Falcons just aren't quite at that level yet.
Yeah, that is definitely something to monitor. This is a difficult matchup for the Falcons, certainly. Offensively, they seem to be going up against, a team that is good against stopping what they're best at doing, which is running the ball. But for the things that we mentioned, right, like the 49ers haven't really faced a lot of good running offenses, so that's probably part of it, and they could be very banged up, so it's possible we could see the Falcons have more success than expected on the ground. But if the Falcons can't run the ball, this offense is not going to look good. It's going to struggle a lot, so it's really going to come down to that. I do think the Falcons keep it within a score because I think that's sort of their MO this year, and if it's within a score, that means, a turnover or two, a play that goes your way, you could be looking at a chance to upset the 49ers. I'm not going to predict that the Falcons will do that, but I do think that once again, this team will be in it at the end of the game. It'll be within a score. I think it's going to be like 24-17, something like that. The Falcons, I think, have managed to get in every game against the Tampa game, they managed to get above 20 points. I think so.
Yeah, I believe so.
So, that this is one of those games where, against the number one defense in the NFL, might have a lower scoring output. But again, if you can force a couple turnovers, if you can really tighten up in the red zone, which is where they've actually played pretty good defense so far, that could be the difference in the game. That could allow you an opportunity to get some stops and have a chance to pull off the upset here. I don't know. Obviously, it would help if you could win either this game or the Bengals game for their season-long sort of outlook.
Ambitions,
but it's not the end of the world if you don't. But then it's like if you don't win any of these three games, right? They already lost the Bucs game. We could argue about whether they should have had an opportunity to win that or not. There wouldn't be any arguing. We would just
there's no argument.
Yelling. We would be just angry. Yeah. But that one, they didn't get a W. They do have an opportunity here, and then against Cincinnati. If you get one of those, then you only need to go like 4-2 over that easier stretch to go into the bye with the winning record, which I think is like a necessity. Yeah.
There's a lot of winnable games there, so yeah. I think that's the best way off this. I do want to mention a final thing, just because to me he's been the best player on the Falcons this year, and besides the Rams game, he's made an impact in every game, and they're going to need him. And it wouldn't surprise me if he made 3 or 4 big impact plays. That's great, Jarrett. Jarrett. That Tampa game, he was like a one-man army, and I think Shanahan kind of knows we got to have to double team. I was really surprised Tampa wasn't really double teaming as much. Like he was getting isolated matchups, and he was in Brady's lap. And
Luke Goddard, just got his lunch taken every play. Like
we kind of knew what's gonna happen, but I was just like, why are they not sliding the protection? Like, what's the center? Robert Haney, like, why is he not doing it? Like, how are you leaving him on an island? I think Shanahan knows better, but still, like, great Jarrett's the type of player, especially with his get off, like. He could split double teams, and it wouldn't surprise me if he made 4 or 5 big time plays. And I just think, man, everyone always loved Gray Jarrett, for obvious reasons. But I saw last year he was a little below his high standards. This year, like he's playing like an all pro, and if he could continue to sustain this, I hope he gets those honors. And who knows? I think the Falcons, if he keeps playing like this, being that tone setter, they can upset a team or two.
Yeah, I agree. He'll be absolutely key to any sort of upset here, as will the red zone defense, where the Falcons have been much better than last year. They've been 15th so far in red zone defense, only allowing like a 57% touchdown rate.
I'll consider that above average. Yeah. For their sake, I'll consider above average.
For them, putting it in context, that's well above expectation. So
that Cleveland game was big.
Yeah, it was. So we're both predicting a loss, but not a huge one, and in that that means that if a couple plays go their way, they could win, guys. So don't come after us for this one. But I promise, after this 3-game stretch, we're gonna start picking the Falcons more. Like, at least I will.
You look at those matchups. There's plenty of reasons too. Look, the schedule will be more favorable, and I think the team will be more healthy because look, who knows what would happen if Kyle Pitts would play last week. I think they desperately missed Kyle Pitts. I know stat sheet won't tell you, but look, Kyle Pitts, we know how much a game changer can be. And I hope it's this week because I'm tired of people questioning Kyle Pitts. I'm like, look, I hate this recency bias. This man put together an incredible body of work last year under difficult circumstances. We know especially it could be whether it's just better game playing or, in my opinion, better quarterback play. You'll see the Kyle Pitts, his role in the offense will be maximized, and we'll see that natural talent of him being a superstar come to full fruition.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the quarterback play with Kyle Pitts. I don't think it has much to do with Kyle Pitts, and I think Arthur Smith would like the ball to go to Kyle Pitts as much as possible, but it hasn't worked out that way so far. This is like a stopgap offense. This is not the final product that Arthur Smith wants to put on the field. Like, we've seen what he wants to do. We saw it in Tennessee when they were like the best offense in the NFL for like a couple of years or close to it. Mm-hmm. Deep play action passing, great running, very efficient passing. Right now, they've got the run game, that's nice. I think that was earlier than we expected for this run game to be coming together. They don't have the play action passing, set up, especially not the deep stuff. So like this is a work in progress. He didn't draft Kyle Pitts to make him a blocker. Like, that's ridiculous. So just hold off judgment until the quarterback is in place. Now, if they never get a quarterback in place, that's certainly another thing we can complain about. But
that's what 2023 is for.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But Alan, really appreciate your time once again. He is at Alan Strk, everybody on the Twitters. Anything you'd like to plug?
I have a piece that just came out just about Falcons kind of having to weather the storm of playing 3 teams from last year that could have been the Super Bowl. Like, this is their toughest stretch. So I just wrote a couple of the key factors of things you want to see, regardless if they win these next 2 games or not. And I just want to mention just the listeners, and it's not starting next week, but the week after, I will not be on the preview shows anymore due to New York regulations now require me to be in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we won't be able to record it. But I will be doing post-game shows with you starting on October 30th. So next week we will do a Falcons-Bengals preview, but after that, I will be moving from the pre-game breakdowns to post-game reviews.
Yep, we're not losing Alan, guys. We're just shuffling the scheduling a bit.
In-game adjustments.
In-season adjustments. It's, the best coaching staffs do it, and we're doing it here on this program. So appreciate Alan's flexibility there, and certainly don't envy you going back into the office. But you got to do what you got to do. So.
It's 2022, folks. Sorry.
Still going into the office, man.
I gotta go to work.
Oh yeah. Guys, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Like Alan said, check out all the great stuff on thefalcoholic.com. If you're interested in supporting the show, you can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/falcoholiclive. If you're watching the video, like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio, leave a 5-star review. We will be back on Sunday for the post-game show, breaking down the Falcons versus 49ers, hopefully getting that sweet upset W. That would be fun, Let's will it into existence, guys.
And referees, please.
Yeah, please, for the love of God, don't do this to us again. Like, that was our one just awful call. Okay, we don't need to get any more of those going.
I don't want to hear Jimmy Garoppolo's handsome. That's why we made the call. Terrible.
Yeah, no, he's beautiful. He's a beautiful man, but that's not a good justification for the game-altering decision-making. So,
and for the city of Atlanta, they don't need to see Kyle Shanahan smirking on the sidelines either.
Yeah, please don't. No, I don't think we could take that. That's not okay. But they are going to be wearing those beautiful throwback helmets.
Oh, yes.
So this is an opportunity for us to make that our chosen uniform that every time we put it on, we get a dub. So let's start it this weekend. Let's get that going.
Fantastic.
All right, guys. Again, thank you so much. We will talk to you next time on the Falcoholic Podcast. For myself and for Alan. Have a great night, folks.